Three of the biggest improvements the WF-1000X6 brings to the table is number 1, the switch from a 5-band EQ with clear bass dial to a more proper 10-band equalizer in the Sony Sound Connect app, which really lets me dig in and customize their sound quality properly. Number 2, we can finally customize their controls down to the individual gestures. Now, this is something that I've been requesting since the first gen 1000X model, so I'm very happy to see Sony finally giving more control to the user. And number 3, Bluetooth connection is more reliable now. Where I used to get a few signal drops here and there commuting on the train using the previous model, the WF-1000X5, I have not gotten any signal drops on the Mark 6. Most likely due to the changes Sony made to its antenna system being 1.5 times bigger than the Mark 5 and in different locations. Some changes that I don't really like are, for example, the size of the earbuds and the case. The case itself may not be thicker than the XM5's case, but it is taller, so it's gonna take up more space in my pocket. And though the earbuds are slimmer than the XM5's, they are a bit longer and fatter. So if you like to sleep with earbuds and you're a side sleeper like me, you are gonna feel them a bit more than the XM5 earbuds. And if you're wearing a winter hat, it's gonna jut out a bit more also. That being said, the new form factor may not be such a bad thing because people have complained that the XM5 earbuds are too small and they can't get a snug fit no matter how much they shove it in their ears. That glossy surface didn't help either, but this time on the XM6 earbuds, they have a matte finish which does grip better in my ears. And for people with smaller, cuter ears, they now come with extra small sized ear tips. Apart from that, there are also changes to their performance versus the previous model, the XM5 earbuds, such as their sound, noise cancelling microphone, and ambient mode. We're going to talk about that and also compare them individually to some of the hottest earbuds in the market, the AirPods Pro 3, Bose QC Ultra Gen 2, Technics AZ100, and by popular request, the Samsung Galaxy Buds 4 Pro, which I will also be reviewing in a separate video. So get subscribed and tap the bell button to stay notified for when that review comes out. Links in the pinned comment. If you want to check the latest prices of these earbuds on Amazon, click here for Shopee price. In terms of microphone quality, the WF-1000X Mark 6 is a noticeable improvement over the Mark 5 earbuds because in noisy, windy conditions, the voice capture on the Mark 5 sounded noisy and choppy. But now, on the Mark 6, my voice sounds smooth and intelligible. Now, it's still not perfect because it does cut out the S sounds, which hurts intelligibility, but much better overall than the Mark 5, which is why I'm giving it a rank A in my mic quality rankings, right up there with the Technics AZ100, the Samsung Buds 4 Pro, and the Bose QC Ultra Gen 2. Now, it did beat the AirPods Pro 3 because my voice through the AirPods Pro 3 sounded choppy in noisy conditions. But I also gave the AirPods Pro 3 a rank A because it does support super clear wideband voice capture on Apple devices. This was tested in both quiet and noisy conditions using really loud cafe noise and wind noise from this fan. I'm now making a phone call in a quiet place using the Sony WF-1000X Mark 6 earbuds. I'm now making a phone call in a quiet place using the Sony WF-1000X Mark 5 earbuds. I'm now making a phone call in a quiet place using the Samsung Galaxy Buds 4 Pro. I'm now making a phone call in a quiet place using the Technics AZ100. I'm now making a phone call in a quiet place using the Bose QC Ultra Gen 2. I'm now making a phone call in a quiet place using the AirPods Pro 3 with voice isolation mode turned on iOS. I'm now making a phone call in a noisy and windy place using the Sony WF-1000XM6 earbuds. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. I now get a phone call in a noisy and windy place using the Sony WF-1000XM5 AirPods. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. I got me get a phone call in a noisy and windy place using the Samsung Galaxy Buds4. The quick brown fox comes over the lazy dog. I got me get a phone call in a noisy and windy place using the Technics AZ100. The quick brown fox comes over the lazy dog. I got me get a phone call in a noisy and windy place using the Bose QC Ultra Gen 2. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. I got me get a phone call in a windy place using the AirPods Pro 3 with the voice assistant on iOS. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. As for active noise cancelling, frequency sweeps show that the WF-1000X Mark 6 is an improvement over the Mark 5 in the lower bass to mids region, but above 1 kHz, it's noticeably weaker. This does mean that you should get better silence against loud, droning noises like the rumbling of public transport and the plane's engine if you're traveling, vacuum cleaners, and machinery, but not against the upper registers of high-pitched sounds like the sound of birds and children. It is, however, more effective than the Technics AZ100, a bit quieter than even the Bose QC Ultra Gen 2, and quite comparable to the Samsung Buds4 Pro. Only that the Samsungs cut less noise than the Sonys above 2.5 kHz, because the Sonys, after all, use ear tips made of foam and silicone and not just silicone like the Samsung. The only one more effective overall in this comparison is the AirPods Pro 3, which cancels more noise in the lower and mid-range regions, albeit a little weaker in the upper mids and high frequencies. Listen to the samples. Now, if you want to compare their active noise cancelling and call quality to other products, for just $1 per month or more, you can access My Secret Weapon, my personal database, which lets you compare their samples A to B directly. Hundreds of people have joined up because this saves you so much time, being able to just cut through all the marketing and compare the products yourself without visiting a store. Most stores don't even let you try the products due to hygiene reasons. So join now on YouTube or Patreon through the links below. The Mark 6 earbuds transparency mode is an improvement over the Mark 5. There's more airiness and clarity to ambient sounds around me. Even voices sound much less occluded, so it's easier to have face-to-face conversations using the Mark 6 in transparency mode. Compared to the rest, it's very close to the level of the AirPods Pro 3 and Bose QC Ultra Gen 2. They're just as transparent as the Buds 4 Pro, and they are more transparent than the Technics AZ100. Again, a definite upgrade from the XM5 earbuds. Now, for sound quality, assuming that they're all set to default EQ, the WF-1000X Mark 6 has a brighter sound signature than the Mark 5. Frequency sweeps show that it does have more gain in the upper mids above 1.5 kHz up to the 10 kHz region. Now, I don't hate it. In fact, I think it sounds more exciting, and I'm hearing more of the upper registers of vocals. On the flip side, it can sound a bit fatiguing out of the box, especially if you're used to mellow sounding earbuds, but that can be fixed easily with its 10-band graphic EQ. Subscribe now so you don't miss my recommended EQ settings video. Now, apart from that, they sound quite similar in terms of sound staging, track separation, as well as bass impact and extension compared to the Mark V. I've prepared some sound samples comparing the Mark VI not only to the Mark V, but also to the other earbuds. And after that, I'm going to compare them individually, so don't go away.
And I don't know how. I guess the soft life made me act right. Big boss, where you make me feel so at ease. Independent, but I follow your lead. Ain't no games we play for keeps. You got the ring, so tell me, Papa, what do you need? In the morning when you get dressed, Zeus in the evening if you're feeling stressed. Tough by your decisions, I trust, cause you only want the best for us. I'll be on the weekend when we hanging out. I love her own club, boy, I make a vow that you're my number one priority. Just keep giving me all your love. Don't stop giving me all your love. I'm sitting in the palm of your hand. Your wish is my command. Just keep giving me all your love. Yes, it took a real man to bring it out of me. Gave me good love, baby, and now I see what a big dog needs. I think it's funny how one of you is submissive now.
To compare the sound quality to other earbuds, go to loudoundwireless.com/sound samples. So should you buy the Sony WF-1000XM6 or the Mark V? Now, let's assume that it's now going for a cheaper price. The Mark V, at this moment, still seems very compelling because of its more portable size, and performance-wise, it's still not that far away from the Mark VI. It can still be a valid purchase if the fit is good enough for you, if you don't mind its microphone performance, and if you don't mind the occasional signal drops outside. It's really occasional, it doesn't really happen that often. That being said, while the upgrades from the Mark VI are not huge upgrades, they are meaningful upgrades with better connectivity, better low-frequency noise cancelling, better transparency, better mic pickup, that fantastic 10-band graphic EQ, and fully customizable controls. They also have a new suite of battery preservation settings to extend the lifespan of the XM6 battery, which the XM5 doesn't have. Background music effect is also a big plus. It turns the audio into a convincing overhead sound that feels like background music in a cafe, which makes it easier to focus on work while listening to music. Personally, I prefer the WF-1000X Mark VI. Comparing the default sound quality of the Sony WF-1000X Mark VI to the Samsung Buds4 Pro, in certain ways I do prefer the Samsung because it sounds cleaner, tracks are better separated, and it's able to reproduce a bit more air and depth in the soundstage. Great for metal and synthwave music. The reason I prefer the Sony is that it sounds more visceral in the upper mids, so I could feel a bit more excitement in the sound. And although its bass is a little muddier than the Samsung's, it's got more gravity. It's a groovier sound overall that flatters music like jazz and R&B music. Also worth mentioning that the Sonys are louder at the same volume level. Now, I do think that the Sonys might be better for audiophiles, because there's a lot more freedom, as in you can customize the Sony's sound whether on iOS or Android devices with the Sony Sound Connect app, which also gives you features like audio upscaling with DSEE Extreme, custom settings, and firmware updates, whereas the Buds4 Pro can only be customized on Android devices with the Samsung Wearable app. And even on Android, you can only get 24-bit 96 kHz audio on Samsung devices with SSC UHQ codec, whereas the Sony supports the more common high-resolution codec LDAC. The Sony's multi-point pairing also works with any device platform, so you can pair both an iOS device and PC or Android at the same time, whereas Samsung restricts multi-point connection to Samsung devices only. That said, some compelling reasons to get the Samsung instead is I do find them more comfortable to wear since it's a lighter fit compared to the Sony, and with the slimmer profile, it's easier to sleep with them in case you need some noise cancelling. Now, for people who want to use just one earbud, you can access all the controls on the Samsung since each earbud combines swipe and squeeze gestures to access things like volume, music, and call controls. So these are very valid reasons to get the Buds 4 Pro, but as you saw, there are also reasons to get the Sony WF-1000XM6. The default tuning of the Sony WF-1000XM6 sounds very similar to the AirPods Pro 3, a mild V shape with more emphasis on the upper mids. Bass response sounds similar too, but with repeated A/B testing, it seems that the Sony's bass sounds a bit more heavy and visceral, while bass on the AirPods sound a bit more clean and textured than the Sony's. The AirPods could also deliver a bit more air in the soundstage, and I suspect that has to do with the usual cut-off above 15 kHz with Sony earbuds. But only the most discerning listeners can really tell the difference, since humans are much less sensitive to those treble frequencies. Now, there are three big reasons why I use the AirPods so often. Right now, it's got the best noise cancelling performance of any earbuds, although the Sony's are very close. Second, the whole package is slim and small, so it's very easy to carry around, and the size of the earbuds are pretty great for sleeping. And third, since I'm a user of multiple Apple products, a couple of iPhones and iPad, it's so easy to connect to all of these devices at once and transition between them for audio and calls, as well as having notifications read out to me in real time, although that can be annoying if you're using the AirPods Pro 3 for sleeping. Just be sure to disconnect them from all devices first before doing that. However, the reason that I'm using the Sony a lot more these days is because there is more flexibility. Whether it's on iOS or Android, I'm getting all of the features, settings, and updates. And using their 10-band graphic EQ, I've even managed to make them sound even more dynamic and more enjoyable than the AirPods Pro 3. Whereas even on iOS devices, the AirPods Pro 3's sound quality is not as customizable. The Sony's also has true multi-point pairing, so I can connect up to two devices at once, whether PC, Android, or iPhone. And if I happen to use them with an Android device, there is no sacrifice in sound quality because I'll be streaming over the high-res LDAC codec. Even on LDAC's best effort setting, it's a higher bitrate than regular AAC. Now, as for noise cancelling, the Sony's aren't as powerful as the AirPods Pro 3 overall, but it turns out that they are a little better for blocking the sound of screaming children because of the thicker foam silicone hybrid ear tips. Now, I love kids, but sometimes I just can't stand them. To me, the WF-1000XM6 sounds a little better than the Gen 2 Bose QC Ultra in the sense that its dynamic range is tighter, so the mid-range is louder, and vocals sound a bit more engaging with details in the background shining brighter. On the flip side, bass on the Bose sounds more fun. It's tighter, cleaner, and louder, and I'm feeling more tactility in its bass. Sound staging is also a little more airy on the Bose, but honestly, they sound a lot more similar than different. As an audiophile, I do prefer the Sony because it does support LDAC codec streaming and its sound quality is more customizable, from the different EQ presets it offers to the 10-band graphic equalizer, as opposed to the 3-band EQ for the Bose. The Sony is also a slightly stronger noise canceller. It's much more feature-rich and more portable because of the smaller case compared to the Bose. But where the Bose is better is in terms of comfort. It's a much lighter fit that's also very stable thanks to the wing tips. It's also easier to operate thanks to a big touchpad on the surface that you can swipe and tap to access all the controls on each earbud. It also has better transparency and you can enjoy great spatial audio with head tracking anytime, what Bose calls immersive mode, since it does work with any content on any device, whereas the Sony restricts that to certain Android devices, apps, and content. Comparing the default sound quality of the Sony WF-1000XM6 to the Technics AZ100, I like the Sonys for having better dynamics, bringing up the subtle details of instruments and vocals, such that vocals sound a bit more natural and less recessed than on the Technics. But where the AZ100 has the upper hand is that it just sounds cleaner than the Sony. It's not that the Sony sounds muddy, but the Technics sounds more resolved, better separated, and more spacious. Its bass is also heavier with more grooviness. Now, I like both sound signatures in different ways, and I also like the fact that you can customize them just as much in their respective apps. What does keep me coming back to the Technics though is their smaller case and the fact that they are great all-round performers. Technics earbuds are also the only ones that support three-way multi-point pairing, so you can connect up to 3 devices at the same time, whereas others, like the Sony, only connect up to 2. They also support spatial audio with any content, and they are also easier to wear and more comfortable than the Sonys, which do require a bit more elbow grease to fit into the ear canal. Now, where the Sonys are the better choice is better noise cancelling and much better transparency mode. For many people, that could be the deciding factor to open their wallets for the Sony WF-1000XM6 instead of the Technics AZ100. But what do you think? Comment down below. So that's how the Sony WF-1000XM6 compare to the most popular earbuds in the market. Links in the pinned comment if you want to check the latest prices of these earbuds on Amazon. Click here for Shopee. Now, I will be releasing my custom EQ settings for the WF-1000XM6 earbuds very soon. So get subscribed and tap the bell button so you don't miss that video. Also, click here to learn which are the best earbuds by far.